All right, hey guys, Jessica Henry here. Wanted to welcome you today to my studio. I'm going to be working on another installment of this painting that we started last week. So happy to have you guys here. And what we're going to do today is we're going to work on just refining this drawing and working on this finesse here. So good to see you guys. Want to get going on this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun and informative. It's going to be a little bit more focused. So my concentration is going to be on, his head's really tiny, so I want to try to get his likeness on here. Going to work on his hands and just getting the gesture here. I don't feel that I caught the gesture quite right in this context there, so I want to work on that a little bit more. Happy to have you guys here with me today, and with that, I'm going to jump in. Okay, I wanted to mention that we are in the process of working on getting another video available through Renaissance Creative Arts, and that one is going to be very similar to what we're doing here. It's going to be on painting the figure, and I've already got the video done. The video is all about like last year I did my son sitting on a dock reading a book. I still have all that video, and I'm going to work it all into one video that was in 5 parts last year. So I'm going to do it into 1 part, and I'm going to write a nice book to go with it, so that will be available soon through Renaissance Creative Arts. I'm really excited to offer that to you. But for our other offerings, go to renaissancecreativearts.com, and we have a portrait video as well as anyway, so we have the portrait video that we're offering, as well as the whole from Tuscany to Tipperary plein air painting, and those are 8 videos with the accompanying workbooks to go with. So those are on our website as well. All right, so I'm going to jump in and I'll talk more about that later. All right, so last week this is an hour into the painting, and like I promised, I haven't touched it. So I've had a week to look it over and find out things that, the gesture, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, isn't quite right. And I want to just sort of adjust these things. A lot of you asked on YouTube and Facebook if you can follow along and paint. So if you're just getting started and set up, I have this photograph on my Facebook page. I will share it again so you can have it to copy at your home at your leisure. Go ahead and copy it if you want to paint along with. So I've had this week to look at these things and things I want to fix and all that. So today I'm just going to focus on refining this. I'm not going to be adding color today because that's launching into a whole new part of the painting. So we'll get into that next week or the next session. I might do a special video next week for Valentine's Day, so we'll see what happens. All right, so this part of the process, well, all I'm going to use today, again, same as last week, just ultramarine blue, burnt sienna. I don't even think I'm going to use the yellow, ochre, and white, but so I just have some kind of old brushes. I have some smaller ones I'm going to use today. This one is like a size, well, it says it's size 2, but it's pretty small. And then just some junk, the cheapy kind of brushes you get. Yeah, this one. Okay. Just cheap synthetic. I think I've used it for other illustrations. All right. So I set my palette up on the ledge here on my easel, so you won't be able to see it, but you're not going to miss anything. And then I taped this photograph right to my canvas, which is now dry, and I'm going to jump in. Okay. I'm not going to be using any linseed oil. I have my Gamsol here in my little container, and that's all I'm going to use to help draw the image on. And so today this brush is just a size 2, little tiny synthetic. I'm going to jump into his face here and just kind of warm up with getting some of this in here. Okay. And you can't really see it on here, but I did have a plumb line that I had put in last week, and that follows along the edge of his face here and just goes straight down. I can still see it on my painting a little bit in here where I had it, so I'm going to refer to that as I'm blocking in just the main features in here. So I have to kind of sit straight, so my back will be even more towards the camera than it was before. But, so I'm looking at the plumb line and where the angle of his forehead comes out from under the hat. Just getting this outside contour, the nose. And I'm looking at the distance, how much space is allowed from the top of his hat to here on the image here. And it's like that. Let's get his hat line where it touches the forehead defined. It's at this angle, and then as it follows along the edge of his face, right in here, it kind of angles a little bit back. I think I drew it going more upright, and it's confusing because the top, it kind of opens up like a V. So this top line comes up and does that, but the bottom line here goes down like that. Okay, so that's kind of making a little bit more sense. All right. And let's get the eye line. I always like to get that established. The eye line, the nose, and the mouth all parallel to each other. So his eye line, his head's kind of tipped, so we'll just, you can't see the other eye, but this one comes like that. The bottom of the nose. The relationship between the eye and the nose, that triangle shape in there, is very important. It gives us a likeness. To keep my head straight. If I don't keep my head straight, everything gets crooked. And then the mouth. And the bottom of the chin. So it's all in there. And they're just little marks. You can just make those little indications just with the small little, like that, right in there. Guidelines that you can come back to later and just finesse. Put it together. I'm putting in the eyebrow. I'm just going to wipe my brush off here and not get any more paint or clean it off, but I'm going to use it to help carve out the eye socket shape in there. Okay, just softening that value a little bit where that is, the hat is creating a cast shadow on his face. I just kind of want to suggest that passage in there. All right. And cleaning the contour a little bit where the face was meeting the shadow. And then the hat rim, I'm looking to see where it intersects his face as it comes around his nose. And it looks like it hits it right about at the tip there. Okay. So that works. I feel that the angle of that is reading accurate. I'm going to move on and just try to work things as a whole as I'm working through here. I'm not going to work this area to a fine finish at the moment. I will later on. But I want to make sure that all of this is reading together. What happens sometimes is you can get really focused on one little area, and before you know it, that area is focused and everything else. Then you focus on this area, then you focus on this area. And without seeing it all as a whole, things can get kind of contorted and blown away. I hope you brought, I got my cup from my daughter yesterday. It's probably backwards on there, but U.S. Army cup. Woohoo! So anyway, going back. I'm looking at too here where his ear is. A lot of times with the ear, it can help suggest the angle of the entire head. So I'm looking at where the lines, and we understand that the top of the ear is in line with the eye, the bottom of the ear is kind of generic in line with the bottom of the nose or the mouth, whatever. But if the head is tilted, then all of those rules change. So you have to go by not your knowledge, but by what you see. So if I take my brush and have it as a straight line, and I put the brush right at the top of his ear, where does that hit? And where does the bottom of the ear hit? Okay, so the top of the ear is going to hit about the lower part of his eye. And so I have his eye sitting in this area. So there's the top of his ear. And then the bottom of his ear lobe, as I measured it and checked it, holding my brush straight, it's about at the top of his lip. Okay, so the top of his lip is right about in that area, so we've got the ear in this passage. Okay, and then the back of his neck comes like up behind his ear over here, like that. And the bottom inside of his neck right here, I'm seeing where that falls in relation to the plumb line. Remember I had a plumb line? I'll draw it back again so you can see We're gonna need it today. If you're following along and you followed last week's lesson and you've put this on your canvas this week, if you don't have your plumb lines anymore, you want to do this. You want to put them back in. You can always take them out later. It's a little bit more easier to see, especially if you're trying to get in some of these fine tunes. And that's all we're doing today, is just fine tuning this drawing. Okay, so looking at where his chin falls in relation to the plumb line and the neck, it creates a triangle here. And the neck goes in here. You don't see very much of it. Okay, now I want to get this gesture right. I want him to feel as relaxed on here as he looks here. I want to capture that here. So how do we do that? All right, so I'm looking at the distance. I folded my paper here today. I don't know if you remember from last week, but the image comes up to about here. But I folded it because I wanted a nice vertical line here to help map out where these points hit a straight edge. So let's figure out how far over this straight line is, because I don't think I have it right on here. So to correct that mistake, I'm gonna figure out the head measurement, putting the tip of my brush at the bottom of his chin and my thumb at the top of his hat, just like that. And then that's one head on here. So I'm going to figure out how far over this vertical line is on my paper by putting the tip of my brush right on the plumb line. And I'm looking at where my thumb hits his shoulder. Okay, it's about where the shadow turns into light right here. So I'm going to come over to here to do that. And so here's his head. I'll retake this measurement from his chin to the top of the hat. There's the head. And then from the plumb line over the point of his shoulder was about there. That's where the shadow is going to be meeting the light, and I don't have that accurate on my painting. So I'm going to get that in place a little better. From his neck, where it comes down to the collar of his shirt in here, it comes out more of a slope, which is going to give me more of that comfortable, relaxed gesture that I'm seeing on here that I don't have here. Like that. Also, looking at this negative space behind him too is going to help get that. Hope you guys are all doing okay and everyone's had a good week. Staying warm, I hope. So tired of winter. Okay, so the shoulder is like this. And then I'd made that mark where the highlight meets the shadow right here. So that means that he does come out further and then slopes down. Comes back. Oh, I have a head mark right there at the top of his knee. That's another head length down from his chin down to the top of his knee is one more head. So, and I have that mark still on my painting here, so I'm going to kind of draw it straight over and see where that hits. And right about there is where it starts to turn and go in. And his vest comes out, but then his waist comes down. So I want to just make sure that I got that whole form flowing along that way better. And I want to draw a line straight from where his back there goes straight up. See where it hits his head? If I'm holding my brush accurately straight, it goes right to the back of his head. My hand's in the way. So holding my brush straight, that's about where his seat is there. And if that's not in the right place, the whole thing is going to look off. So I want that to be accurate there. And where this hits the plumb line, coming up. And its leg comes right in through here. So again, we're working on this all through as a whole here now, jumping around a little bit. There's his vest. And then his arm comes way over here and extends this way a little bit. I don't have it quite right on there, so I'm gonna just kind of fix that. I am gonna grab a little bit of white because I can't erase anymore, because last week when I was doing this, I was erasing to pull out some of the highlights, but now the paint is of course dry, so I'm gonna use just some white to help define where those images are. It's not with the purpose of applying a finished appearance, but just to help me figure out the drawing and the values. And so this is, I'm just putting a thin glaze, which is going to create a shadow in here. Gotta love these super cheap paintbrushes. Just work them. There we go. Okay, so that makes a little bit more sense to me now. I'm feeling like the appearance of this gesture is a little more on point there. I'm also looking at my camera too. If you have your camera set up in your studio, sometimes just turn it on selfie mode and you can look at your painting in reverse and you can see problems that jump out. So sometimes I'm looking at the camera like, oh, okay. It's a great little tool. Very useful. So grabbing a little bit more of that white. Let's get that in there accurate. His arm comes here, and I'm looking to see where there's a major junction here between a plumb line and a horizontal helper line, and just looking to see what happens in this passage in here. The cuff of his sleeve comes down like that, and then his arm is in here, and his hand rests on his lap over there. So there's that. All right. Okay, so now there's problems then with the rest of this gesture creating that relaxed feel. So I'm going to work on some of that passage over there. Again, if you're just joining, all I'm using today is burnt sienna and ultramarine blue, a little bit of Gamsol, just creating sort of a dark mixture. I did grab some white, of course, as I mentioned in here. Up a little higher than what I have it. So there's that. All right, and then his vest. I'm looking at the negative space that's created by his vest as it comes down, and the white shirt in the background. Kind of has this shape. So those are things I want to pull out a little bit more accurately. I'm looking at where they fall in relation to the plumb line, what I have there to work with. Okay, I want to get this triangular shape of his vest in here a little bit more accurate. So that's about like that. Okay. All right. Without that anatomical feature here, you can see the edge of his scapula as it comes down to his back. Those are very critical to get those in the right place, and I'll pull out more of that as I'm going along here. I have to do it now. I'm thinking about it. Scapula up to the trapezius, there on down. And there's a little highlight here where his shirt. Okay, I said I wasn't going to get into the painting, but sometimes things won't start to feel right until you can start getting a little bit more of that detailed information in there. So I'm feeling better about that. Then I'll get some of the background in there to help too. Okay, back to the front. his shirt as it comes this way, and his scarf comes this way. I'm looking at where his scarf hits and intersects with the bottom of his chin, and it kind of wraps around the front of his neck and is in this area. I have it too low on my painting. And then just again grabbing this little white mixture here because I want to suggest where his white shirt is going to go so that it can kind of start to feel like the pieces are fitting together. So I'm using the white as I would have used erasing from last week. Like I said, I don't have that ability to erase this week anymore because things are dry, but I can add just a sort of a non-committal passage of white that is a little bit more accurate shape. And I'm looking at this angle of his collar, the white collar, and I'm holding my brush on it and comparing the angle of that to my angle. I need to get my angle a little bit more kind of horizontal that way. Which makes sense too because I had too much of the top part of his vest showing in here. So yeah, that makes sense. That goes that way. And then on the other side of his collar scarf thing, there's a piece of the shirt. This comes down like this. Okay. And then the front of his shirt, I'm looking to see where the white of this passage in here starts to intersect the plumb line, which is right here. So it goes this way. So find me on YouTube, Jessica Henry, and there's a lot more. It's about 70 videos, 70 some videos up there too. And also, in case you're just joining, we are getting together video footage data for our next release with Renaissance Creative Arts, and I'm writing a new book for that, Painting the Figure. I'm very excited to release that one probably within the next few weeks, so that'll be great. Looking forward to that. Stay tuned. If you haven't been to our website, go to Renaissance Creative Arts and sign up for our email newsletter and see all what we're doing there. A lot of really exciting things coming down the line. We've also been having great success and a lot of great feedback from the programs that we have been doing so far. Painting the portrait and from Tuscany to Tipperary one. A lot of great plein air information in that. So check it out. Good stuff. If you're enjoying these teaching and these videos and all of that, these are more or less just samples here that I'm doing here. But we're excited to see a lot of things that are happening. In case you weren't aware, 20% of everything we make goes directly to charities that are helping meet human need across the globe. And so that's very exciting to see some of those things happening. One of our organizations is if we reach a certain amount, they want to put in a well in a village. And so we'll be getting more information on that up on our website soon too, about all of these different things that we are excited to help with and reach and create an impact on the whole world through art. I think that's very exciting. So it's great to be part of something that is just bigger than our own present moment. To use art as a platform for that. That's making a difference. What I'm doing here is I'm just taking a little bit of this blue and white mixture because I was losing the angle of the front of his vest to the background. and therefore I wasn't able to get the feeling of this gesture without the feeling of that angle of the front of his vest, creating that illusion of relaxed feeling here. So there's that I'm working on there. And it comes all the way to the front of his shirt, and then there's a dark blackish shadow underneath, so we'll get that in there. Okay. Like that. All right. So I'm starting to feel more like this gesture here makes more sense and matches that gesture there too. I always appreciate when I look out there and I see you guys that such good friends and such wonderful things that all of you have said and continue to say, your support. Just really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. All right. Now I'm looking at this whole thing, scanning the whole picture, and I see that as I'm, my temptation is to work on the legs because I want those to be right, but I think I'm going to come up here to this arm, and I want to make sure that that is coming out of his body along the same bone socket area that the other shoulder is. So I'm going to work on that passage before I move on. So his scarf, looking at where that is, to his chin. His chin's there. Scarf will be here. And then his arm comes right out of the scarf. And again, last week I was able to wipe out with the Terps and create my drawing that way, but I can't, so I'm going to grab some of the white to help get this angle in here a little more visible. That's what I'm working on. I like that, being there to help me with that. And then the shoulder, remember I had just mentioned how I want the shoulder here to feel like it connects to the shoulder on this side behind him. So the highlight on this shoulder needed to be a little bit more representative in the right place. Like that. Okay. There was such beauty in this whole scene when I took it, and I loved the balance and the composition and the mood and his feeling. So I just was really excited that it had all that. Everything was there. It's not often that we get photographs that have so many elements working. But I know I was going to talk a little bit about working from photos too. In a lot of our material that we are selling through Renaissance Creative Arts, I address working from photos quite a bit because as anyone who's painted knows, you know that working from life is ideal. Having a real model, real landscape or whatever in front of you is the best way to go, but it's not always possible. So then next option, though really the only other option we have, is to work from photos. And so I like to teach people how to do that instead of just pushing it aside. So to work from photos, a lot of the challenges that you're going to encounter are drawing, because as anybody who's taken a selfie knows, you hold the camera too close and things are all distorted. So when you have anatomy or whatever and there's a distortion, you have to take pictures from other angles or find other references or whatever you can do. Sometimes there's little models and things you can set up to get a more accurate representation of anatomy. You can also get distortion in colors. There's filters and there's colors look washed out, and a lot of times the value is the third thing that can be distorted in your photo reference. And so, your darks will be too dark, and darks can be too dark, lights can be too light, and things get washed out. So it does require learning a little bit how to work with the finesse of those distortions. Yeah, I hate working from photos. I mean, if I could strongly discourage anyone from it, I would, because it can, over time, you can learn to believe and paint things that are not actually that way. Instead, we just simply rely on what we see in the photo. So working from life is going to give you an education that photos never can. So, I mean, I could preach for a good hour on why we shouldn't work from photos. At the same time, it's inevitable. It just is. And, so how do we manage that? So I'm looking at the bottom line of his arm over here, and I'm looking to see where it angles downward. I had it angled this way. It's supposed to be angled that way. So I'm going to angle it the correct way. So fixing this, and I'm doing that with just a little bit of blue. I said I wasn't going to be adding color today, but it's just kind of happening, isn't it? Let's get that accurate in there. So his elbow is right in this passage, and then I'm using a darker value to get the bottom side of his arm here where it's resting on the wood. A little bit more accurate there. There, that feels better. Okay. And so the wood from this bench, I'm going to get that back seat in there just right. So I'm looking at this entire negative space back here created, well, I guess it's more positive space, created by the wooden part of the bench, and how that comes out where it touches the vest. I'm making that work for me there. Let's give it a little bit of highlight, a little bit of white, just a little, so that we can see it. Nothing much, just a little. I'll come back through with much better paint quality and brushwork, and we'll talk about all those things as we're moving along. For now, I'm just trying to get the drawing in a little bit more accurate than it was last week. Okay, bring my brush off. I'm glad you guys are valuing these. I really appreciate the feedback too that we've been getting from all the videos, and all of that. It means a lot. It's nice to know that we're meeting our target expectations and so forth. Getting his arm in. I'm looking at this overall angle of, on top, the contours, and where there's this subtle little dip, and the bone of the arm comes out. And like I said, I can't erase anymore because my canvas is dry, so I'm going to have to take background color and sort of shape and rework some of that whole passage in here. Let's do that by grabbing some white. And I do still have some yellow ochre, so maybe I'll just use that to be my background color. So coming in here. There we go. That's almost my canvas color. So, okay, so feeling like that is making more sense. I'm going to add a little bit of burnt sienna to that yellow ochre mixture just to suggest this top angle of his arm. A little white into there. And that'll kind of give a suggested skin tone color, but I need to get this contour of the arm accurate. Again, I'm still just using a little bit of Gamsol just to keep this thinner, since I'm not really at the part where I'm applying thick paint and so forth. I'm just gonna use it at this point to help draw in where I need to go. I hope you can see that. Yeah, okay, good. And then under his arm, here where it's resting on the bench, we have a strong dark shadow. And I'm pretty sure that in real life it probably wasn't this dark, so I will add a little bit of atmosphere into that bounced light, because I would bet $100 that this bench and his hand and everything was creating a reflected light. in this area. But again, with photos, you get that value distortion that just sort of flattens out dark passages. So I will make sure to add that in when I'm ready to. Just mental notes that I'm taking along the way as I go through the painting process. And just taking those kind of ideas as you're working helps to sort of speed up the process. You know, if you have sort of a checklist that you know, okay, I want to make sure I get to that, and I want to try to tackle these different components. You know, it helps. Sometimes write them down. I'll do that too, where I just write down ideas and things I don't want to forget about. I'm always talking about having a concept before you begin a painting. It's like a builder having a blueprint. Without a concept, it's very difficult to arrive at a destination. So I'd heard that through years, the beginning years of my journey into being an art, and I never understood. Well, I needed more of an explanation. What do you mean concept? Isn't it enough that I take a photo or a still life and put it on canvas? What do you mean concept? So over the years, I've learned what that means, and how I've best been able to explain it is have an idea of what it is that you really want to say about your subject. That's your concept, and it's that simple. In this photo, more than anything, what I really wanted to capture was his overall relaxed feeling. I wanted this idea more than accuracy. I mean, I'm striving towards accuracy, and I never let that go. But this mood was so critical that that's what this painting's all about. So, as my concept, what do I have to do to get that to come across? So if that's what I want, I'm going to need accuracy, otherwise the drawing's going to be really distracting and no one will feel that. So I need the drawing to be in place. I want this movement of light across the canvas to suggest his ideas and his thoughts, my model's thoughts, as they're coming out of him. So that's another area that I can use to make my concept believable. So having those ideas always at the front of my mind, okay, drawing accuracy, movement of light, not getting overwhelmed with all these other extra details, but just focus on this. I'm going to make those my target efforts in this entire process. I hope that makes sense. Sometimes concepts can be all kinds of different things. Sometimes it's drama of lighting, whatever, or you have to find that thing that really spoke to you about what it is that you wanted to paint, finding your inspiration, finding your voice, and then asking yourself, okay, that's what I'm saying, that's what I'm responding to, how do I get it? So, behind his hand over here, there's a darker passage in the bricks, which is perfect because it kind of sets off his hand. And as humans, we're very sensitive to things like hands. In paintings, they tell us a lot of times what the person is thinking. So his hand is very relaxed, and so is his gesture. So to me, that hand is every bit as important as his face. So I want to capture that loose, really relaxed feeling and get that in there accurate. Just getting a little bit darker. I'm just taking some dark paint now, and I'm going to draw on the hand where I see it. And I mapped out length and size and everything last time I was live. And as promised, I didn't touch the video, or I didn't touch the painting during the week. I wanted to, but I said I wouldn't, and so I didn't. And that comes that way. And the thumb comes this way. And that's in here. I find it much easier to paint the drawing on than drawing this in with the pencil too, because I'm able to erase easier, and I don't have eraser fuzzies and things like that. His wrist bone breaks and bends way up here. I have it too low. I'm looking at where this first bend is right here in relation to the thumb where it comes out. And so it does more of that bending right there. And it goes back that way. Yeah, I'm drawing his hand here, and I'm thinking about future videos that we're going to be offering through Renaissance Creative Arts. And one of them I can't wait to do is a hand. So we're going to do a whole video on hands, just painting hands. Maybe I'll add feet, hands and feet in together. And I'd like to use Dan's. This is Daniel Hill-Riedel, and he has these beautiful, expressive hands. So I want to make him sit for me. Hold your hand still. And I'm looking now where the first set of knuckles are in relation to this thumb knuckle on the other, this passage right in here. So I'm looking across, drawing a line. That looks like it bends about there. And then the fingers just kind of hangs almost straight down, slightly angled out. So I'm going to just take some of that lighter color of white that I had, and just get, and Triquanda had this unbelievable peacefulness to it. That's another thing I'm hoping to convey to you too, is it just that overall peaceful feeling. If you ever get a chance to go to Triquanda, we're going to be in Tuscany this June for our workshop over there. So if you have the opportunity, we would love to have you in our workshop with us. Daniel and I will be co-teaching painting the figure in ancient, old world Italian landscapes and architecture. It's going to be your one-stop shopping for your workshop needs. Everything will be in it. We're going to be talking about portraiture, figure drawing, capturing the perspectives in a landscape, portrait, I already said that. This kind of stuff. A little bit of plein air painting and the whole 9 yards. So if you take one workshop next year, I'll make it that one. Or this year, it's this year, 2018. I know that there are spots still available if you're on the fence about it. Contact Raphael through Tuscany in the Frame. He'll have more information on getting you signed up. But it'll be a great one. Really excited about it. What I'm doing here is I'm just taking a little bit of that lighter tone that I had for his skin, and I'm just kind of redrawing the shape of his hand and areas in here that were a little bit lost. So there's a passage here on the bottom side of his thumb that I want to, it was too bulky, so because I'm just using this bulky little cheap brush, so it's a little bit lighter under his hand, which is great because there's that dark shadow here, and then under it is lighter, so that just has that nice compositional element. So I'm going to use that to shape back his thumb a little. That way. Like that. Okay, that's feeling better. And I'm going to just pull that hand out a little more from the background. Okay. There. hand. Let's create a little bit stronger shadow where the thumb bends. And there's fingers underneath. So just gonna suggest those a little bit more before I move on, because I do want to get the rest of this painting a little bit more accurate before closing out for today. Okay. So I'm feeling like that is reading a little better in there. All right. His arm comes up and I want to, whoops, give this elbow a little bit more width here. It doesn't quite read right. Okay, there. Okay, so that part I'm content with. I'm gonna work on getting this whole lower passage a little bit more accurate. And, oh, before I move down to there, I'm gonna get the hat in place a little bit more too. The hair is very dark back there, and then the hat, and this might be difficult to see, so I'm gonna try to make it a little bit more. No, so I'm looking at where the hat, as it comes around, where does it hit his ear, and it kind of just hits in right in about the middle of it. And then it comes up quickly, and then it launches back this way, and then the top of the hat, if I follow the line of the back of his head into a gentle curve, that's where the back of his hat comes. So here's the back of his head, and if I go straight up, that's where the top of the hat is. And that comes up and over. And then I'm just going to take some of that white and yellow ochre just to lay down that area in front, on the top of his hat, just to help give me some definition there. Bit of line right here to help define this so I can see it a little better. I want to take some of this yellow ochre just to put it back behind the hat back here so we can see a little bit better of where I'm going with things like that back here. So it's hard to see. Okay, so I hope that that helps there. All right. How are we doing on time? Okay, I think we're approaching an hour, so I want to get the rest of the drawing in here a little more accurate, and then we'll be done for the day. So the knee, his arm comes like this. This knee is right there. So let's give that a little bit more form as it comes down. I need this to be thinner. Paint. I'm gonna move this over. I think, yeah, you can still see it. Okay. All right, and then I think that the rest of this is working just fine. And his cuff comes this way. This painting is really getting to the place now where I'm really having a lot of fun. I wish I could work on it for hours today. But next week, we'll be getting more into color and laying down some more information in here and just really starting to play with things. But yeah, so if you're liking these videos and you're enjoying this figure study, like I said, we will be getting more into more figure work as we're moving along here. Going to be producing, we're in the process right now of producing our next video for Renaissance Creative Arts, painting the figure. And I'll be using that painting of my son reading a book on a dock. I'm really excited about that one. And writing a whole book for that. All new information. So if you're following along, we have just released Painting the Portrait, and that's full of information on not just painting the portrait, but on, working from photos, classical impressionism, and so forth, mixing colors, skin tones, thinking typography, sculptural. It doesn't matter if you don't paint in oils. These lessons apply to anyone because the concepts are the same. So even if you don't paint in oils, I've had a lot of questions throughout the week here about watercolors or acrylics. Of course, there are parts of the process where the technique really only applies to oil painting, but the concepts are the same. So you can get a lot out of the videos just based on that alone. And then the information too on working from photos and thinking typography. All of the videos and things that we release come with bonus gifts, and we also are offering a special where if you want to buy the whole thing, the From Tuscany to Tipperary, all 8 videos, plus the Painting the Portrait all at once, we will give you a $97 rebate on all of it. So good stuff we're offering, and I think that you'll enjoy it. And the exciting thing too is we're getting people from all over the world starting to enjoy these videos, and we're getting a map for the office that has locations from all over the world where people are buying these and enjoying them. Very exciting. So, and also they're all downloadable. Everything is downloadable. Workbooks. Eventually we will get DVDs and other things, but for now we're enjoying this. We're getting things ready to go on Amazon, and that'll be our next frontier. Right. So I'm kind of just not mindlessly, I'm actually really thinking about this, but I'm working on getting some of these contours and values of his leg just sort of in place before I quit for the day, because I wanted to read a little bit more accurate. If you can get a value, like this value here is off, it's way too bright, and so it makes it look like, for whatever reason, there's a big lump there, and it doesn't make sense. So I'm going to take and put just a thin layer of color over it, not that dark, but let's just do a scumbling on that and try to push it back into the shadows a little bit more so that it reads anatomically correct. And there's a shadow created by his vest coming underneath it. Over here, coming to the back. That makes sense now. And it comes around his leg. These shadows are going to define the form of the leg, as well as the folds in the pants and stuff like that. That value's too bright. So you just wipe your brush off and kind of just blend it in. Of course, like I said at the beginning, this is not like finished painting, but I am working on trying to get things accurate, the drawing and the values accurate today. Because next week, we're going to focus on actually applying color and getting things working towards the finish. Once things are in place for accuracy, then you can start working on getting the color in place. Depending on the complexity of your subject, I try to go right to the finish as soon as I can. So if I'm working on just a really simple still life of some apples or whatever, it doesn't take me very long to do this stage where I'm just laying things in, and then I get right into color. So I'm going to be talking about a lot more of that in the upcoming months, and as we're working towards our online art academy and things like that. So if you're not on our email newsletter and you're enjoying all these, jump on board, get on board, be part of the Renaissance community, and you'll be notified of all of our upcoming classes and workshops and things we're doing. We got a workshop in Montana in July, one in Tuscany in June. Very excited about that. So that's what we're doing. Just working on this shape here. I think that the drawing of this foot wasn't really accurate, so I'm working on that real quick before I sign off. And the toes come up like that. And then I know that the length of everything was correct because I worked on that last week, but the overall contour and shape wasn't. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm looking at that. What I'm going to enjoy about painting this foot is that the top part of his foot is almost exactly the same value as the ground and area around it. And I can trust in this photo that that's pretty accurate. And on top of that, I don't really want to draw the eye down here anyway. So where I'm going to lose an edge right here is just going to be a really effective means of keeping the eye going up this way. I don't want to focus on the shoe and all the detail and the laces and the crinkles and everything. So I just know in my head, I'm going to lose this edge. I'm going to lose this top edge of this shoe and use these to help direct the eye. Everything is always about directing the eye and keeping the focus in this area. And same with the back of his shoe here. That's going to be a nice area to lose that completely to this passage under the bench, like that. His pants kind of come down a little bit more straight, like this. Creates a shadow on the top of his shoe, that way. There we go. That needs a little bit more refining. Coming up that way. All right, how's that foot? I think that's gonna be okay. All right, I think I'm at a reasonable stopping place. Move my palette. And yeah, I think that I didn't really focus too much on the face. I think that I got a little bit of the overall gesture to be sort of an acceptable stopping place. And yeah, so that's just what we worked on, is just getting this a little bit more refined and tighter, and then I'll be ready to jump into more accuracy in color and paint next week. So again, I wanted to thank you guys for joining me, and this was a lot of fun. Go to Renaissance Creative Arts, see what we're doing and what we're offering there. We got a lot of new and exciting things, and we're always giving stuff away. So sign on board, and thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.